Hi guys, Miss Melanie again. We're on week 8 of distance learning. You guys are so amazing that you've made it this far. I'm really proud of all of you. I know that it's not easy, but you guys are so amazing. So this week in math, we're going to be continuing our work in measuring and length. And so let's look at our learning targets this week. There's 2 of them. First one says, I can measure the length of an object using a whole number of non-standard units of measure. When it says non-standard units of measure, that is talking about anything that you can use to measure something. So you could use cubes, you could use paper clips, you could use toothpicks, anything that you can lay end to end and use that to measure something, that's your non-standard unit of measure. And then the second one says, I understand that the length measure of an object is the number of units laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap. So that means if I'm measuring using paper clips, first of all, I have to use the same size paper clip because, you know, there's big paper clips and there's small paper clips, and I can't use both because they're not the same. So I need to use all big or all small. I need to be able to lay them end to end, and I can't have them overlap each other, and I can't have them have gaps between them. They have to be touching end to end without overlapping and with no gaps. So that's what that learning target is talking about, okay? So we're just gonna go ahead. Oh, hold on one second. I need some of my magnets. And my markers, sorry. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and just work out some problems together so that we know what we're doing this week, okay? So I will read you the problem and then I'll hang it up here on my refrigerator and we will work it out. Okay, so this problem says, what is the length in squares? So you can see underneath, it's measuring this crayon using squares. That is our non-standard unit of measure for this problem. So it's asking us, how long is this crayon using the squares that are provided, okay? So if we take a look, all you have to do on this one is count up those number of squares. So you can see the divide, hopefully you can see that. But let's count our squares. And if you need to, touch each square as you count it, if that helps you count correctly, okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So this crayon is about 4 squares long, okay? Does that mean that that's going to be about 4 paper clips long? Maybe, maybe not, but a paper clip is a different unit of measure, so it doesn't have to be the exact same. And we'll look at that in a minute on another problem, but for this problem, we're just using these squares, okay? All right, let's look at this side. About how many squares long is this glue? Well, it doesn't have any squares, so it actually cuts them out for us. We're gonna hang this up and see about how many squares long is this glue stick. Okay, so I have my squares. I'm gonna measure up underneath, and when you measure, remember, we still need to be using our starting point. I can't have this lined up like this. That's not how it works. We gotta have them both lined up on the starting line, right? And then we can measure. So let's see, 1, 2, 3. It's a little bit longer than 3 squares. You can see right there that when it's measured up, it's a little bit longer than 3 squares. That's why we are using this word about. About, because it might not be exactly 3 squares long, but it's about. And when you come across this, where it's a little bit longer than exact, you want to go to the bigger number. So I'm not gonna say this is 3 squares long. I'm actually gonna say this is 4 squares long, because we're gonna round up whenever we come across something like that. So this glue stick is about 4 squares long. About 4 squares. little more than 3, but we're gonna round it up and we're gonna say it's about 4 squares long. About means it's not exact, and that's okay because we're just using our non-standard unit of measure. So we're not trying to get an exact amount, we're just trying to get an about number. Okay, let's look at this one that wants to know how many squares long is this eraser. Once again, I'm going to use my squares that I cut out, and we're going to see how many squares long this eraser is. So if I hold it up, okay, this eraser is a little bit more than 2 squares long. So you can say it's either 2, or about 2, or about 3, but remember it's always best to round up. So we're gonna say that this eraser is about 3 squares long. About 3 squares long, okay? Even though it's not exactly 3 squares long, it's not asking exactly how long it is. It's asking about how long is it, okay? And it's about 3 squares long. Okay. This says, Boom uses 4 squares to measure a ribbon. Did Boom measure the right way? Why or why not? Well, let's talk about this. Boom is measuring, he's using squares that are all the same size like I talked about before, but does this look right to you? Boom is actually not measuring correctly because if we look at our second learning target, they need to be laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap. Are all these squares laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap? They're not. All these squares would have to be laid like this, end to end, if Boom was using this the right way. So he did not measure this correctly. All of those boxes would have to be facing the same direction in order for this to be a correct measurement. Okay? Okay, let's look at this one. Buzz says that the crayon is 4 paper clips long. Do you agree? Why or why not? Take a look at those paper clips. What do you notice about them? They're all the same size. Are they laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap? Okay, remember overlap looks like this. Gap looks like this. Those paper clips are actually overlapping each other. They're overlapping if you look right here, right there, right there. They're overlapping each other like this. So did Buzz measure this correctly? He didn't. These are not laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap. So Buzz did not measure this correctly. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Which one shows the correct way to measure string? A, B, or C? If you look at A, what's wrong with those boxes on A? Yeah, I can just imagine some of you at home yelling at me. They have gaps in between them. So is that the right way to measure? No. What about B? B, it's kind of hard to tell, but B, actually, they're overlapped a little bit. They're like this, a little bit. So is B the right way to measure? No. What about C? Are all those cubes laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap? Yeah, they are. So our answer on this one would be C. C is the correct way to measure the string. Each cube is laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap. So that's the correct way to do it. All right. This says, identify what is the length of the watch. Well, look at that. They are using 2 different units of measure. Do you think they're going to be the same? I don't think they're going to be the same. Let's take a look. Okay, it says identify what is the length of the watch. Well, it's lined up here with the end of the cube, and it's lined up here with the end of the paper clips. So they are all lined up on the starting line. Let's count the number of cubes that it takes to get to the end of the watch. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh, that's where it ends, 17 cubes. So it says it's about 17 cubes long. Do you think it's about 17 paper clips long? Let's count and see. Goes to the end of that paper clip. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, there's only 7 paper clips there. Why isn't it the same amount? That's kind of weird. Oh, I know that some of you at home are telling me because the cubes are not the same size as the paper clips. Is that okay? It is. These are just 2 different units of non-standard measure. So 17 cubes long and 7 paper clips long. It is a-okay to use 2 different ways to measure. That's perfectly fine. You just have to make sure you're counting them correctly, that they're laid end to end with no gaps and no overlap. And it doesn't matter. Okay, last problem we're going to do together. Buzz says this string is about 6 paper clips long. Do you agree? Why or why not? Take a good look at those paper clips. What do you notice about them? Are they laid end to end? Yes, they're laid end to end. Are there any gaps or overlap? I don't see any gaps or overlap. But what do you notice about them? Are they all the same size? No, these paper clips are not all the same size. Remember, we talked about this. All your units of measure need to be the same size in order to use that to measure. So he would either have to use all the same big paper clips or all the same small paper clips, line them up end to end with no gap and no overlap in order for it to be correct. So again, Buzz is not measuring correctly. Buzz and Boom need some help with their measuring, don't they? I think you guys are just the kids to help them out. Okay, so this is what we're working on this week. Units of measure. If you have any issues or problems or questions, please reach out. At the end of this week, we would like you to give the end of unit test. That was given to you in the bag with the language arts packet that we gave you a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. So you should find it in there. It's Unit 5 assessment, and I will be sending out the answer key for that. So please give that on Friday. Because of that, I did only give enough math pages for 4 days, so you can give the assessment on the 5th day. Required math pages this week are 747 through 750 and 753 to 756. Those are the required math pages this week. Please have your child take that test. If they get any incorrect, take a picture of it, send it over to Miss Cindy or I, whoever their teacher is, so that we can see what their thinking is. And if you have any questions on that, please let us know. Remember to keep doing your iReady reading, keep doing your iReady math. That's the most important thing that you could be doing. Please join your reading groups, math groups. For my class, I'll be sending out today, also Monday, for this week, so that we can be working on our regrouping. But please, please, please make sure your kids are reading and doing their iReady. Those are really the most important things that they could be doing during this remote learning session. If you have any questions, reach out. Otherwise, good luck with your measuring. You guys are all amazing, and I know you'll do well with it. I will see you hopefully soon. Thanks. Bye.